Daniel Barnes, you saw the notification, didn't you? The one Hannah put in the family group chat last night. Daniel Barnes, she showed me the screenshots. Every time you complained about the money I send your mother, every time you said the cabin plans were too much. Daniel Barnes, after I paid for the rental, the flights for her and Angela, and covered the bills she couldn't handle this month, you still couldn't keep your mouth shut. Daniel Barnes, your own mother thinks you're the selfish one now. Hannah made sure of that. She's been the only one keeping this family together while you sulk. Daniel Barnes, we leave for the cabin tomorrow morning. You can come if you apologize in the chat and stop making everything about you. Otherwise stay here and figure out why nobody wants to hear from you anymore. Hi, my name is Amelia Barnes, I am 32 years old. The phone was still in my hand when he finished. The group chat notification had arrived while I was unlocking the front door after work. I had seen Hannah's name at the top before the screen went dark, then Daniel started talking from the kitchen like he had been waiting for this exact moment. He did not raise his voice. He never did. The words landed flat and final, the way he delivered every decision that had already been made without me. I opened the chat. Hannah had posted a long message about protecting family peace and how some people made it impossible to plan anything nice. There were heart emojis from my mother. A reply from my cousin Angela saying she was so sorry this is happening again. No one had tagged me. I scrolled up and saw the thread had continued for hours without me in it. At some point my name had been removed from the group. Daniel stood at the counter with his arms crossed. Hannah said you would do this. Turn it around and make yourself the victim. I set the phone down. You and Hannah decided I should be removed from the family chat. She did it because you were making the planning miserable. Someone had to step in. My mother had called 2 days earlier about a surprise visit. She said she and Angela wanted to come up from Kansas City for the weekend before the cabin trip. Daniel had said it was fine, that he would handle everything. I had offered to pick them up from the airport. He told me not to bother, that Hannah was already coordinating with my mother. I had not argued. I rarely did anymore. It was easier to let the plans happen around me until they didn't include me at all. Daniel picked up his keys. I'm meeting Hannah to go over the final list for the cabin. Your mother and Angela will be here in the morning. Try not to make it awkward when they arrive. He left without waiting for an answer. The door closed with the same quiet click it always made. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. The accountant, Mark Hamilton, had left a voicemail earlier about some paperwork Daniel had asked him to review. I had not called back yet. Mark handled the household accounts because Daniel preferred it that way. He said it kept things clean. I had stopped asking to see the statements months ago. The house felt larger than it was. We had bought it 5 years earlier in this Omaha suburb because Daniel wanted space for when family visited. The extra bedrooms stayed empty most of the time. My mother had stayed in one of them twice. Hannah had never stayed here. She lived 20 minutes away but seemed to know every detail of what happened inside these walls. I went upstairs and opened the closet where we kept the old boxes. I was not looking for anything specific. I just needed to move. In the back, behind a stack of old photo albums, was a small envelope I did not remember putting there. It had my name on it in handwriting I recognized as my father's, though he had been gone for 8 years. I left it where it was. Some things were safer untouched until they had to be touched. My phone buzzed again. Another notification from the family chat, now without me in it. Hannah had posted a photo of the cabin rental confirmation. My mother replied with a string of hearts. Angela wrote that she was excited to finally have a peaceful weekend with the people who actually care. I closed the app. The next morning my mother and Angela arrived while Daniel was still out. My mother hugged me at the door the way she always did now, quick and careful, like she was afraid I might say something that would require her to choose a side. Angela stood behind her with a small overnight bag and a folder tucked under one arm. Daniel said you might be tired from work, my mother said. We can keep things low-key. Angela gave me a small smile that did not reach her eyes. Hannah's been so helpful with all the planning. She even made sure the cabin has enough bedrooms for everyone. I nodded. There was nothing else to do with the information. We sat in the living room. My mother talked about the drive up, about how nice it was that Daniel covered the cost so they could come. Angela listened and nodded at the right moments. Neither of them asked what I thought about the cabin or whether I wanted to go. The conversation moved around me the way it had been moving for months. When Daniel came home, he greeted them warmly. He asked about their drive, offered drinks, and mentioned that Hannah would stop by later to drop off some things for the trip. My mother's face brightened at Hannah's name. Angela said she was looking forward to seeing her. I stayed on the edge of the couch. Every time Daniel spoke about the weekend, he used we in a way that did not include me. My mother and Angela did not correct him. After lunch, Angela asked if she could speak with me alone for a minute. We stepped into the hallway near the stairs. She kept her voice low. I brought something with me. Hannah said not to, but I thought you should see it. She opened the folder and pulled out an old photograph. It was from a family gathering years earlier, before my father died. In the photo, my mother stood between Daniel and me. Someone had written on the back in faded ink, "Daniel always takes care of everyone. Amelia just watches." Angela held it out. Hannah showed this to Mom last month. She said it proved you've always been the difficult one. I looked at the handwriting. It was not my father's. It was Hannah's. My mother called from the living room, asking if we wanted coffee. Angela slipped the photo back into the folder. I just thought you should know, she said. She walked back to the living room before I could answer. I stayed in the hallway. The house was quiet except for the sound of my mother laughing at something Daniel had said. I could hear Hannah's name again in the conversation. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Mark Hamilton, the accountant. He said Daniel had asked him to move some funds around before the weekend and wanted confirmation. I had not approved any transfers. I typed a short reply asking for details. Mark answered within minutes. Daniel said you were on board with the cabin expenses coming out of the joint account. I can hold off if that's not right. I stared at the message. From the living room I heard Daniel's voice again, warm and steady, telling my mother and Angela that everything was already taken care of. That Hannah had made sure of it. I put the phone away. The group chat notification had only been the first piece. The rest was already in motion, and I had been removed from it before I ever saw the full picture. If you have ever watched the people closest to you rewrite the story of your life in a group chat you were no longer part of, comment healing below. I kept waiting for someone to ask what I actually wanted. No one did. The rest of that afternoon stayed quiet in the way that only happens when everyone has already decided what the story is. My mother and my cousin Angela sat with my husband in the living room while I went upstairs. I packed a bag because not packing felt like admitting something I was not ready to name yet. The old photograph Angela had shown me stayed in its folder on the dresser. I did not touch it again. My husband came up once to tell me Hannah would meet us at the cabin with the rest of the groceries. He said it like he was doing me a favor by keeping me informed. I nodded. He waited for more and then left when I gave him nothing. I called the accountant, Mark Hamilton, while I folded shirts. He answered on the second ring and sounded careful. Amelia, I wanted to check before I moved anything else. Daniel asked me to transfer the cabin expenses and the money for your mother's recent bills out of the joint account. He said you had already signed off. I kept my voice even. I did not sign anything. There was a pause. He showed me an email with your name on it. The timestamp was from last week. I asked him to send me the email. He said he would. When it arrived 5 minutes later, the signature line had my name but the phrasing was wrong. It used words I never used. Someone had copied and pasted it from an older message and changed the date. I saved the email and put the phone down. My hands did not shake. That part came later. Downstairs my mother was laughing at something my husband had said about how Hannah always thought of everything. Angela sat with her hands folded in her lap and did not look at me when I walked back into the room. The folder with the photograph was now on the coffee table between them. My husband glanced at it and then at me. Angela brought some old pictures to show your mother. Family history can be useful when people start forgetting who has actually been reliable. My mother nodded like she agreed with something that had already been decided. Hannah said the same thing when she called yesterday. She's been such a steady presence for all of us. I sat down across from them. Hannah has been deciding who gets to be in the family chat and who gets removed from it. My cousin Angela shifted. My mother looked at my husband instead of at me. He answered for her. Someone had to keep the peace. You were making every plan feel like an argument. The words were soft. They always were. That was how he made them land harder than shouting ever could. We left for the cabin the next morning. The drive took 3 hours. My mother sat in the front with my husband. Angela and I sat in the back. No one played music. The only sound was the occasional notification on my husband's phone. He read one out loud once, something from Hannah about the grocery list being handled. My mother smiled. Angela looked out the window. When we arrived, the cabin was already unlocked. Hannah's car was in the driveway. She came out onto the porch wearing the same careful smile she always wore when other people were watching. She hugged my mother first, then Angela, then turned to me like she was deciding whether the hug was still required. Amelia. I'm glad you came. We were worried you might change your mind at the last minute. My husband carried the bags inside without waiting for anyone to help. Hannah followed him and started unpacking the cooler she had brought. My mother went to choose a bedroom. Angela stayed near the door with me for a moment. She really has been helpful, Angela said quietly. With the bills and the planning. Your mother keeps saying she doesn't know what we would have done without her. I did not answer. Angela went inside. The first clash came before dinner. Hannah had printed a schedule for the weekend and left copies on the kitchen counter. One of the lines read family meeting, Saturday 10 a.m., discuss boundaries and gratitude. My name was not on the list of people leading any part of it. I picked up the paper. This meeting. Who decided the topic? Hannah did not look up from the vegetables she was chopping. We all did. In the chat. You weren't responding, so we moved forward. My husband came in from the porch. It's not an attack, Amelia. It's just a conversation the rest of us need to have so we can enjoy the rest of the weekend. My mother appeared in the doorway holding a cup of tea. She looked at the schedule and then at me the way she had started looking at me lately, like I was a problem that had already been solved by other people. Angela stood near the window. She had the folder with the old photograph in her hand again but did not open it. I set the schedule back on the counter. You removed me from the group chat so you could plan a meeting about me without me in it. Hannah finally looked up. Her voice stayed light. We removed the noise so we could focus on what actually helps the family. Your husband has been carrying a lot. So have I. Someone had to make it easier for the people who show up. My mother set her cup down too hard. Tea spilled over the edge. She did not wipe it up. Amelia, please. We came here to have a nice weekend. Can you not turn this into another scene? The word scene landed exactly where Hannah and my husband had placed it. I watched my mother choose the version of the story that required the least from her. Angela looked at the floor. I went outside onto the small deck. The air was colder than it had been in Omaha. I stood there until my hands stopped wanting to shake. Then I called the local shop owner, Diana Cruz, because she had texted me earlier about an order I had placed weeks ago that had never been picked up. Daniel had said he would get it. He had not. Diana answered quickly. Amelia, I was going to call you again. Your husband came in last week with Hannah. They picked up the order, but he asked me not to mention it to you. Said it was a surprise for the cabin. I thought that was strange since you were the one who placed it. I thanked her and hung up. The surprise had never reached me. Back inside, the kitchen had gone quiet. My husband was at the table with the schedule in front of him. Hannah stood behind him with one hand on his shoulder like she belonged there. My mother and Angela watched from the couch. My husband looked up when I came in. We're doing the meeting tomorrow morning whether you participate or not. Hannah and I already wrote down what needs to be said. I did not sit down. You and Hannah have been writing a lot of things with my name on them lately. Hannah's smile did not move. Someone has to keep records when people refuse to be part of the solution. The room waited for me to argue or to cry or to do whatever version of myself they had already decided was easiest to manage. I did none of those things. I walked to the bedroom I had been given and closed the door. The lock clicked into place with a sound that felt final even though I knew it was not. Through the door I heard Hannah say something low to my mother. My mother answered with a tired laugh that sounded like agreement. Angela stayed silent. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the folder Angela had left on the dresser. The old photograph was on top. On the back, in Hannah's handwriting, the note had been written over something else that had been erased. I held it under the lamp. Faint letters showed through. The original line had been different. It had not said I was difficult. It had said something about my father trusting me with the difficult things. Someone had taken the time to change it. I put the photograph back in the folder and placed it in my bag. Outside the window, the trees were already dark. The cabin felt smaller than it had when we arrived. My phone lit up with a text from the neighbor back in Omaha, Betty Simmons. She had been watching the house while we were gone. She wrote that a woman had come by earlier asking for Daniel and had left an envelope when no one answered. Betty said she had taken it inside for safety. She asked if I wanted her to open it or wait. I told her to wait. Then I turned the phone face down. The meeting was scheduled for the morning. The rest of the night stretched out in front of me like something I was supposed to survive without making noise. I did not know yet what I would say when they all sat down at that table with their printed schedule and their careful version of who had been generous and who had not. I only knew that the version they had built no longer had room for the parts of the story that did not serve them. The morning came gray and still. I woke before anyone else and sat on the edge of the bed with the folder in my lap. The changed note on the back of the photograph looked even more obvious in daylight. Someone had erased the original words and written over them. The erasure marks were faint but visible if you knew to look. I went to the kitchen. Hannah was already there making coffee. My husband sat at the table with the schedule printed in front of him. My mother and Angela came in soon after. No one spoke much. The meeting started at 10 exactly. My husband began. He spoke about generosity, about how he and Hannah had been the ones holding everything together, about how difficult it had become to plan anything when one person refused to participate. Hannah nodded at the right places and added small details. About the group chat and the emails she had sent that I never answered. My mother agreed with them. She said she was tired of walking on eggshells. Angela stayed quiet until Hannah asked her directly if she had seen the same pattern. Angela looked at me for a long second. Then she opened the folder and took out the photograph. I brought this because Hannah said it showed the problem, Angela said. Her voice was not steady. But the note on the back was changed. I compared it to the original in my phone from years ago. The first version said something different about who was reliable. The room went quiet. My husband reached for the photo. Hannah's hand moved faster and took it first. "That's not important right now," Hannah said. "What matters is how we move forward as a family." I spoke then. My voice stayed level. "You removed me from the chat. You forged an email with my name to move money. You rewrote an old note to make me look difficult. And you used the money you generously spent to buy the story that I was the one who couldn't be grateful." My mother looked at my husband. He did not look back at her. Hannah tried to steer it back. "Amelia, this is exactly the kind of reaction we were trying to avoid." I stood up. "I'm not participating in this anymore." I walked to the bedroom, packed the rest of my things, and called a rideshare. While I waited, I texted the neighbor Betty Simmons and asked her to open the envelope if she felt comfortable. She replied a few minutes later with a photo of what was inside, a printout of messages between my husband and Hannah discussing how to handle me and my mother, including plans to limit my access to joint accounts for her own good. Betty added that she had seen Hannah at our house more than once when I was at work. The rideshare arrived. I left without saying goodbye to anyone inside the cabin. On the drive back to Omaha, the phone rang. It was Diana Cruz from the shop. She said Hannah had come in again that morning asking if anyone had seen me and whether I had said anything about the family. Diana told her she didn't discuss customers. When I got home, the house was empty. My husband had not returned yet. I changed the locks that afternoon with the help of a locksmith named George Hale, who came recommended by Betty. I also called an attorney, Rebecca Torres, and asked what it would take to separate the finances cleanly. She told me it would be messy but possible. Over the next weeks, the invitations stopped. No more group chat notifications. No calls from my mother asking about holidays. Angela sent one text saying she was sorry for bringing the photograph but that she didn't want to be in the middle. I did not answer. My husband moved his things out over 2 separate weekends while I was at work. He left a note saying Hannah had helped him find a place and that it was better this way for everyone. I threw the note away without reading the rest. The bank representative, Lisa Grant, called once to confirm the account separation paperwork. She was professional and did not ask questions. I kept going to work. My coworker Elena Vargas noticed I was quieter and asked once if everything was okay. I told her it was fine. She did not push. Some nights the quiet in the house felt like it might swallow the air. I sat with it anyway. The facades had required me to keep pretending I still belonged in a story that had already written me out. Removing myself was not victory. It was the only way the pretending could end. I still have the original photograph with the real note underneath the changes. I keep it in a drawer. Not because I need proof anymore. Because it reminds me that truth does not need permission to exist, even when people spend years trying to erase it. The automatic family invitations never came back. That loss sits beside the clarity. Both are permanent. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever had to choose between the comfort of a lie that included you and the truth that left you standing alone, comment healing below. I am still learning what the days look like after that choice.